Meanwhile, the median time to get approval to build a house there is 627 days. That's 217 days longer than it took to build the Empire State Building.
Let me ask something really fast. How does it take 627 days just to get permission to build a house in a state that says it has a housing crisis? That is not building time. That is not weather problems. That is only waiting for approval. For example, the Empire State Building, one of the most famous buildings ever made, was finished in 410 days. And that happened in the 1930s without modern machines, computers, or coffee shops on every corner. If that does not make you concerned, I am not sure we're well. And this is exactly why Bill Maher has finally reached his limit. Honestly, he is saying clearly what millions of Californians have been shouting about for years. Before we continue, do me a quick favor. If you like commentary that speaks honestly, press the like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments if you think California has too many rules or if you believe everything is perfectly fine.
Any regulations that aren't necessary, I mean, you really don't believe that the state we live in, California, is lacking regulation. There's over 300,000 regulations. I mean,
Well, maybe they're needed.
They're not. When I tried to put in a garage door, I had to have 3 inspections. And there should have been none. I should be allowed to change my garage door.
Are you kidding? Really? It was about a garage door?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that is.
If you live in California, you already know the situation is not unusual. It is normal. And here is the part people outside the state do not fully understand. California is not simply well regulated. It is overloaded. There are more than 300,000 regulations written into law. That is not smart government. That is gridlock. Housing projects sit unfinished for years. Infrastructure plans get announced, funded, announced again, funded again, and then slowly disappear. High-speed rail is still a joke to many people. When wildfires start, nobody is escaping on a fast train that has never been completed.
California is the place that spends money and gets nothing, which is why you may have noticed when the fires broke out, no one escaped by high-speed rail. We have the highest marginal tax rate in America, higher than almost all other states, and soon Greenland.
California has perfected one thing, spending huge amounts of money and producing almost nothing. And Maher says it directly. This is a state that collects taxes like a Scandinavian country, but provides services like a broken DMV office. It has the highest marginal tax rate in the United States, higher than most other states, and soon maybe even higher than Greenland. And what do residents receive in return? Damaged roads, power outages, a housing market so extreme that a small shed with plumbing counts as a first home. Maher's larger point goes deeper. This is not only poor policy, this is what happens when a state becomes controlled by one political party. No competition, no pressure, no urgency. And before anyone overreacts, this is not about Democrats versus Republicans. This is about responsibility versus comfort. Look at swing states like Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Georgia. Leaders there know that if they fail, they lose their jobs. Every vote is important. Every mistake has results. But in California, political careers feel secure. When leaders believe they cannot lose, they stop trying to earn support. They begin governing for activists, donors, and government officials instead of everyday voters. Competition creates effort. Monopolies create laziness. And California politics has turned into a monopoly. That is why housing prices rise and nothing improves. That is why infrastructure falls apart while committees argue for years. That is why regulations stay in place. Because nobody's career depends on fixing the problems. And then comes the most uncomfortable part of the discussion.
You know this about California.
No, I don't.
Well,
I'm sorry, I don't.
You've never heard that California is overtaxed and overregulated? That we are a one-party state where there's sort of no checks on that sort of extreme leftism. And that, what do you think?
I don't for a minute consider California a state that is extreme leftist. Not at all, not any way.
Well, that shows where your politics are. That's not where mine are. I'm sorry to tell.
When Maher receives criticism, when people seriously say that California is not overtaxed, not overregulated, and not politically extreme, that is when the gap becomes very clear. Then comes Jane Fonda. Jane Fonda has lived an impressive life. But she also lives in a world where regulations feel distant. Higher energy bills do not matter much. Expensive housing is not her concern. Permits, fees, taxes, those are small details when someone is worth millions of dollars. For people like her, regulation sounds like a good moral idea. For everyone else, it means rent payments, fuel costs, electric bills, and whether they can open a business or keep working.
They don't really like them that much. They just think the far left has gone so nutty on so many issues.
That's what they're being told
That's what they,
by people like you.
because it's true.
Maher explains this clearly when he talks about why people voted for Trump. Not because Trump was flawless. Not because voters admired his social media posts. But because he recognized their anger. While wealthy leaders spoke from private neighborhoods, ordinary Americans were struggling with rising costs created by people who never experienced the results. That frustration did not appear suddenly. It grew slowly through bureaucracy, one permit after another. Then Maher shifts to water issues, and this part becomes almost unbelievable. California has faced drought conditions for nearly 20 years. Everyone knows this. People are told to take shorter showers, let their lawns turn brown, reuse towels like they are camping outdoors. At the same time, almond farming has increased. Here is the math that sounds shocking. Oranges, tomatoes, and strawberries use about 11 gallons of water per pound. Almonds use 900 gallons per pound. One single crop uses more water than all the homes and businesses in Los Angeles and San Francisco together.
Spent the last 2 decades in perpetual drought here, yet almond farmers in California have doubled in that time. Despite the fact that almond production alone uses more water than all the humans and businesses in San Francisco and Los Angeles combined, even on days when your teenage son spends 2 hours showering. How much water it takes to grow different crops, oranges, tomatoes, strawberries, all take about 11 gallons to make 1 pound. Almonds, 1,900 gallons. That wasn't a problem back when it rained, but now there simply isn't enough water to go around, and we have to make a painful choice, getting it to the people or getting it.
And what happens next? The state subsidizes it. California farming uses around 80% of the state's water while adding less than 2% to the economy. These are not tiny family farms barely surviving. This is large agribusiness, corporate agriculture, huge operations that receive low-cost water because policies were written like it is still 1890. Maher's point is very direct. Water is limited. When something is limited, it should be priced properly. Instead, taxpayers support massive water use while cities limit showers and rural towns see their wells run dry. That is not environmental protection. That is poor management. And who gains from it? The same groups as always. Corporations with lobbyists, agencies that never reduce in size, regulators who defend their jobs by creating new issues to manage.
California agriculture accounts for 80% of our water use, even though California agriculture is less than 2% of our economy. We actually have enough water. We just give way too much of it to farmers who get their water subsidized by the government because we still act like it's 1890 and farmers are small and independent when they're really mostly part of big ag. And corporations get what they want in a.
This leads to one of the sharpest lines in the whole conversation. The idea that California's bureaucracy exists to make sure nothing ever gets done and then bill you for it. Permit offices, inspectors, zoning boards, review committees, special commissioners, consultants, music, all sharing one quiet mission. Slow everything down, delay projects, increase fees, add obstacles. How can we block you today? Might as well be the official welcome.
A vast network of regulators, administrators, inspectors, contract reviewers, project managers, fee assessors, special commissioners, zoning officers, and consultants whose jobs seem to be to make sure nothing ever happens and then charge you for it. The people who answer the phone, permit office, how may I hinder you?
Applause follows. Then people act surprised when residents begin leaving. This is not just theory anymore. Companies are moving out. Energy firms are relocating. Tech workers are selling homes and heading to Texas, Florida, Tennessee, anywhere that does not treat productivity like wrongdoing. And it is not only big businesses. It is families, retirees, young workers who realize they are working mainly to support a system that offers less each year. Maher names it clearly. Economic self-damage. When a state penalizes success and efficiency, people do not protest loudly. They move away. Then the focus shifts to cities' leadership and the results of ideology before practical governance. Approval ratings reveal the truth. Rahm Emanuel adds a reality check that lands hard. Mayors in major cities are struggling, not because problems cannot be solved, but because priorities are misplaced. Safe neighborhoods, strong schools, stable budgets.
I read that the current mayor of Chicago has an approval rating of 6.6%.
Round it up, 7.
So, I mean, you were just the ambassador to Japan. If that was your approval rating in Japan, they would do harakiri on live TV.
They would do it at 27.
I mean, what's going on in Chicago as the person?
Look, I mean, we were talking about this a little earlier. I mean, you have also the mayor of New York not doing well. Obviously, other things also here in Los Angeles not doing well, the mayor here. Look, and then you got mayors like the mayor of San Francisco and other cities that are doing well. So I would say, look, there is a general rule. I had this when I was mayor. Safe streets, strong schools, stable finances. Focus on those 3 things in your cities.
That is the responsibility. Not culture battles, not symbolic statements, not endless arguments about wording while crime rises and stores lock basic products behind glass. When Walgreens and CVS appear like secure vaults, something is seriously wrong. And schools may be the most troubling issue. The lowest reading scores for 8th graders in 30 years. 3 decades. And what are officials discussing? Bathrooms, pronouns, locker rooms. Emmanuel's frustration is clear. Parents send children to school to learn skills, to read, to write, to think clearly. When classrooms turn into political stages, education suffers. Here is the difficult truth. While leaders focus on image, results decline. And no amount of public moral messaging changes that.
Through 5 years where people became way too permissive of the culture, they were all, which is why everything's locked up at Walgreens and CVS, and that is a disaster.
Yeah.
And our school, and I'll say this about our schools. I don't want to hear another word about the locker room. I don't want to hear another word about the bathroom. You better start focusing on the classroom.
I agree.
We had the worst reading scores for 8th graders in 30 years. And nobody, not a governor, not a mayor, not a president, not a secretary of education is talking about it. We're all wrapped up. Look, in 7th grade, if I known that I could have said the word they and got in the girls' bathroom, I would have done it.
By the end, the message is very clear. California is not struggling because it lacks care. It is struggling because it lacks limits, because it lacks competition, because it lacks leaders ready to reject poor ideas, powerful groups, and oversized bureaucracies. Maher is not demanding a dramatic revolution. He is asking for basic common sense, responsibility, and practical thinking. Focus on the essentials. Build homes more quickly. Price water fairly. Concentrate on safety and education. Stop acting as if regulation is always good when it clearly is not effective. California used to be the destination people rush toward for opportunity. Now it is the place many leave behind, and that should worry everyone. If this made you reflect, press the like button. If you are frustrated with politics that ignore facts, subscribe. Most importantly, share a comment. Can California improve, or has the system grown too comfortable with failure? Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.